If you've ever seen photos of the Banaue Rice Terraces, the famed Stairway to the Sky, the eighth wonder of the world, carved into the mountains of Ifugao province, leave a comment and tell me what you felt when you first saw them. Did you feel the history, the profound, impossible scale of all that stone and labor carved by hand over 2,000 years ago? Because that massive, beautiful structure is more than just farming land. It's a trap, it's bone and memory, and it's always hungry. Hit that subscribe button and hit the like button, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you think about these mountains forever. If you ever find yourself walking those ancient walls, you'll want to remember what I tell you. This is not a tourist story. This is a survival warning. My name is Officer Banaue Lebang. I'm an officer with the Ifugao Provincial Police. Our jurisdiction covers the valleys where the ancient terraces sit, stretching across the most remote and rugged terrain in the province. My family has called these slopes home for dozens of generations, long before the Spanish came, long before anyone drew lines on a map and told us which parts of our homeland we could still walk on. The visitors, the tourists, and the Department of Tourism see a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a monument to human ingenuity. We see something older. We see the backbone of the world, where the spirits shaped the land. We know things about this land that the official authorities in Manila have never understood. We know which sections of the rice terraces are safe and which ones should be avoided. We know what really happens to the hikers and researchers who wander off the main trails and never come back. The authorities blame disorientation, hypothermia, or falls. We know better. Before I tell you what happened last autumn, you need to understand what it means to be a provincial police officer here. Our resources are thin. Backup might be hours away when you're responding to a call in the high country. We also maintain an unspoken arrangement with the national agencies. When something happens near the high terraces, especially something the official rangers can't explain, they call us. Officially, it's because we know the terrain better than anyone. Unofficially, it's because there are places in these mountains that the outsiders have learned to avoid. There are calls they don't want to answer. There are cases they'd rather hand off to someone else. That someone is usually me. I grew up in a small barangay nestled in the valleys. My father was a farmer, but my grandfather, my Apo Thomas, was a Mumbaki, a local elder and spiritual guide. He knew the old stories and the old ways better than anyone I've ever met. He was the one who first told me about the things that lived in the stone. When I was maybe 10 years old, sitting on his porch watching the sunset catch the water on the terraces, I asked him why we never planted rice in the highest, oldest sections. Why the adults always got quiet when someone mentioned the remote valleys. Why the communal rituals were performed at the lower levels, but children were warned never to go to the peaks alone. Some places belong to us, he said, his voice carrying the weight of generations. And some places belong to them. Who's them? I asked. He was quiet for a long time. The shadows were stretching across the terraces like reaching fingers. The terraces are a sacred place, he finally said. It's where the Creator shaped the land and gave us the knowledge to survive. But we're not the only ones who live here. We never were. He pointed toward the ancient stone walls. There are things in those peaks that were here before our ancestors came. Things that don't have names in any human language. Things that are older than the mountains themselves. What kind of things? I asked, caught between fascination and fear. Hungry things, he said. Things that sleep in the deep places and wake when they smell human fear. Things that can wear the shape of animals or people when it suits them. He called them the Pinatubo, the hardened ones, the terrace dwellers. They didn't evolve, they simply were and are and always will be. I didn't believe him then. I was a kid who wanted to fit in, who wanted to watch television and forget about old stories that seemed too strange for the modern world. I told myself he was just trying to scare me, trying to keep me safe with fairy tales, because the real dangers, landslides, accidents, getting lost, weren't frightening enough. Then I joined the army, did 2 tours in the south, and came back with a new understanding of violence and fear. I thought law enforcement would be straightforward after that. Criminals, victims, evidence, procedure. On my 2nd week with the provincial police, Chief Balili disabused me of that notion. He called me into his office, a modest building that looked like it could use a new roof, but then again, everything in the province could use something. He was an old man, broad across the shoulders, and nothing that happened on this land surprised him any more. "Your Apo Thomas came to see me 10 years ago," he said, pulling out a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age. "Said his grandson would end up in this office someday. Said I should give you this when the time came." It was a list, 7 rules written in my grandfather's careful, precise handwriting. "This doesn't come from the DOJ or the National Park Service," Chief Balili said. "This comes from officers who've worked this land for generations, who learned the hard way what happens when you ignore the warnings." I read the rules twice, looking up at Chief Balili, half expecting him to laugh and say it was all some kind of hazing ritual. Rule 1. The thin time. Never walk the uppermost sections of the terraces during the thin time, which is the period between the late rice harvest, late September, early October, and the first planting. This is not negotiable. The barrier between worlds is weakest then, and the Pinatubo are most active. If dispatch insists you respond to a call in the high country, tell them you're experiencing vehicle trouble, and wait for dawn. Rule 2. The farmer's offering. If you find abandoned farming tools, a crude wooden hoe, a rusty scythe, or a bamboo basket, do not touch them. They are offerings or tools left by a new resident. Touching them accepts the job, binds you to the place, and accepts the invitation to stay. Mark the coordinates, return to your vehicle, and file the report as inconclusive. Rule 3. The invitation. Never accept an invitation to work, rest, or eat from anyone you see alone in the terraces, especially if they are performing labor at impossible hours, midnight, high noon. Refuse their hospitality, especially food or drink. Accepting the invitation, even politely, creates a bond that makes it impossible to leave. Rule 4. The time of stone. Always check your watch when the sun is hidden by clouds or the mist is heavy. Time moves differently here. What feels like an hour might be 7 hours or 2 minutes. If the clock on your wrist gives an impossible reading, immediately seek out the nearest waterfall or running creek. Rule 5. The wrong voices. If you hear rhythmic chanting, singing, or the voice of a loved one calling your name from the center of the terraces where no one should be, you are not hearing singing. You are experiencing auditory hallucinations caused by the boundary breaking down. Return to a lower elevation immediately and do not investigate the sound. Do not respond to the name. Rule 6. The geometry of loss. If you encounter a segment of the terraces that defies normal engineering, steps that spiral inward, paths that vanish mid-step, or walls that shimmer, do not approach. These are temporal anchors, holding the entity's preferred moment in place. If you must cross them, close your eyes and only follow the sound of running water. Rule 7. The perfect smile. If you encounter a person walking alone who smiles too widely, whose posture is too stiff, or whose movements are too fluid, do not acknowledge their presence. They are either a terrace dweller or a victim already converted. Return the way you came. Do not try to get their attention.
I looked up at Chief Balili. Shadows, singing, non-existent pathways. These rules have kept officers alive for longer than I've been running this department, he said. Your Apo didn't write them. He compiled them, gathered them from Mumbaki, from previous chiefs, from officers who learned the hard way what happens when you ignore the warnings. What exactly are these terrace dwellers? I asked. I don't know exactly what they are, he said. The elders have different names for them. The Pinatubo, the hardened ones, the things that were here before the Ifugao came and will be here long after we're gone. What I know is this. I've lost 2 officers who didn't follow the rules. He detailed the cases. One who chased a theft suspect into an area closed during thin time and was found catatonic, endlessly carving geometric symbols into stone. And another who went to investigate impossible lights after sunset. Their reports were inconclusive. No contact. The truth was erased. I followed the rules for 3 years. I avoided the high terraces after dark, ignored the chanting I sometimes heard echoing through valleys where no one should have been. I told myself I was being superstitious, that the old stories were just that, stories. Then came last autumn, and I couldn't tell myself those lies anymore. 4. Main narrative. The test case. It started with a call from the National Research Facility. A German soil scientist, Dr. Klaus Werner, had gone missing. He was an academic, skeptical, logical, on a 2-week permit to study the ancient irrigation systems. He was supposed to return to his lodge 4 days ago, but he never returned to his car. His emergency beacon hadn't been activated. He had simply vanished. The researcher who called me, a colleague named Engineer Maria Ramos, was professional and competent, but I heard fear in her voice. We've had teams searching for 3 days, she said. Local guides, helicopters, the whole operation. No sign of him. No tracks beyond the first few miles of trail. It's like he walked into the mountains and dissolved into thin air. Any sign of animal activity? Attack? I asked. None. No torn gear, no blood, no drag marks. She paused. But, Officer Lebang, there's one thing. His GPS tracker was found this morning. It shows him walking a small, repetitive loop in an area we don't have on any of our maps. A valley that shouldn't exist where it exists. Rule 1. Never walk the uppermost sections during the thin time. The barrier between worlds grew thin exactly during the period Dr. Werner was hiking. I told Ramos to seal off the trail and wait. I knew I was going against Rule 1, never go alone, and Rule 3, during thin time. The 2 days had already been wasted on standard searches. Whatever was happening up there, I needed to see it for myself before anyone else went in. I was about to search the tent more thoroughly when I heard it. Singing. It came from everywhere and nowhere. A voice, or maybe many voices, singing in a language I almost recognized. Something older than human speech, using sounds and harmonics no human throat could produce. The melody was beautiful and terrible, rising and falling in patterns that made my heart ache with longing and my blood run cold with fear. Rule 5. If you hear singing, you are not hearing singing. I looked up at the cliff walls, trying to locate the source of the sound. That's when I saw him. A single figure standing on a narrow cultivated terrace ledge, about 50 feet above the valley floor. Dr. Klaus Werner. He was facing me now, not the rock wall. He was standing waist-deep in a flooded paddy field, endlessly smoothing the mud with an ancient, crude hoe, one of the farming tools described in Rule 2. Even from this distance, I could see that something was wrong with him. His posture was too stiff, his movements too synchronized. His skin was already turning the dark mineral color of the wet earth. And he was smiling. The singing stopped the moment I made eye contact. The silence that followed was worse. Thick, oppressive, the kind that has weight. Werner didn't move, didn't acknowledge my presence in any way. Just kept staring with eyes that were perfectly normal, yet held no sign of recognition, no light of consciousness. He had violated Rule 3. He had accepted the invitation to work. "Dr. Werner!" I called out, my voice sounding strange and too human in the silence. "I'm Officer Lebang. I'm here to help you. Can you hear me?" No response. The figure didn't move. The air felt colder now, the copper taste on my tongue stronger. The strange, glowing flowers around me seemed to lean in my direction, their petals turning to track me like tiny eyes. The bones beneath my feet shifted and settled, as if something was moving underneath them. Then Werner spoke. His voice was wrong, too deep, too resonant, like multiple voices layered on top of each other. Like something was using his mouth without understanding how human speech was supposed to work. "The harvest," he said. The word echoed off the canyon walls, repeating and distorting. "The planting is finished. The harvest is perfect. We are home. We are one." "The door," another voice whispered, thin and layered, coming from the shadows of the highest terrace wall. "The place between. He walked through, and now he is clay and memory." The figure stepped off the ledge. It didn't fall. It drifted, descending slowly like a leaf on still water, its body rotating until its feet touched the ground 20 yards in front of me. Up close, the wrongness was even more apparent. His skin had a grayish tint, like stone. His movements were too fluid, as if his joints bent in directions they weren't supposed to bend. "We were here when the stone was lifted," the thing wearing Werner's body said, walking toward me with that boneless grace. "We watched the first humans carve these walls. We watched them spread across the mountain like ants across a picnic blanket. We watched your people arrive in these valleys, watched them build their camps and tell their stories, and pretend they understood the world they lived in." "The terrace dwellers," I said, remembering the name my Apo had used. "The hardened ones." The thing stopped. The smile widened until it split Werner's face, nearly revealing something dark beneath. "Your grandfather, Thomas Ironcloud. We remember him. He came to our door once, many years ago. He wanted knowledge, wanted to understand the old ways, the old powers. We offered him a trade, his eyes for our secrets. But he refused, ran away, spent the rest of his life warning others to stay away from our doors." "We don't want to hurt you, Benigno Lebang," the voice hissed, its breath smelling of copper and rot. "We want you to join us, to shed your small human life and become something greater, something eternal. We can show you wonders that would shatter your grandfather's mind. All you have to do is let go. All you have to do is stop holding on to the world you think you know. I reached for my service weapon. The thing moved faster than anything human could move. One moment it was 20 feet away, the next it was right in front of me. Its hand wrapped around my wrist with a grip like cold iron. "Weapons," it hissed. "You still think in terms of weapons, bullets and knives and fire, as if we could be harmed by anything your species has invented. We survived extinction events that wiped out 90% of life on this planet." Its grip tightened. I felt the bones in my wrist grinding together. "If you refuse," the thing smiled with teeth that went on forever, "then you stay here anyway, just like the others, just like all the bones scattered at your feet. We're patient. We can wait for you to change your mind. We have nothing but time." I knew what had happened to Werner. His consciousness was gone, absorbed, catalogued, consumed, replaced by something ancient and hungry. The real Werner, the scientist, the researcher, was gone. Then I remembered the anting. My Apo had given it to me, pressing it into my hands with trembling fingers. "Don't open it until you truly need it," he had said. "You'll know when the time comes. Trust me." With my free hand, I grabbed the leather cord around my neck and pulled. The anting came free, and I pressed it against the thing's chest. The effect was immediate and violent. The creature screamed, not with a human voice, but with a sound like tearing metal, like shattering glass, like the death cry of something that had never been meant to die. Its grip on my wrist released. It stumbled backward, clawing at the place where the item had touched it, and I saw smoke rising from its chest. Werner's skin was blackening and cracking like paper held over a flame.
"What is that?" it shrieked. "What did he give you?"
I ripped open the bundle anyway, desperate to find something that could save me. Inside were 3 objects. A smooth black stone, warm to the touch, pulsing like a heartbeat. A braid of dried yantok vine, fragrant with the scent of the jungle. And an old, creased photograph, black and white. It showed a young woman standing at the entrance to this canyon, this exact gap in the cliff wall. My grandmother, before I was born. On the back of the photograph, in her careful handwriting, were words in the old language, a prayer, a command, a name. I spoke the name out loud. The effect was like a bomb going off. The creature shrieked, its stolen body convulsing, its black eyes rolling back in its skull. The canyon itself seemed to shake. The walls trembled, cracks appearing in the stone. The flowers withered instantly, their unnatural colors fading to gray. And through the chaos, I saw something I hadn't seen before. A door. It wasn't a physical door, it was a threshold. A place where the air seemed to shimmer and twist. It was at the far end of the canyon, right where the cliff wall should have been solid rock. And through it, I could see movement. Shapes, forms that my mind couldn't process. The creature was crawling toward it, dragging its stolen body across the dying grass. The thing in Werner's body had collapsed in on itself, the skin splitting to reveal something gray and wet beneath. "You think you've won?" the Werner thing rasped, its voice distorted beyond recognition. "You think your magic can protect you? But we are patient. We are eternal. Your people will forget the old ways, forget the old words. And when they do, we will return. We will always return. It reached the threshold and fell through, vanishing into whatever lay beyond. I ran to the threshold and saw what was on the other side. It was vast, endless, a cavern that stretched beyond comprehension. It was filled with shapes that moved in patterns my brain couldn't process. Thousands of them, millions, things that had been old when the earth was young, waiting for the next door to open. I saw Dr. Werner among them, not his body, but his essence, his soul. He was being absorbed, dissolved, integrated into something larger, his consciousness screaming silently as it merged with an intelligence older than humanity. I saw my grandmother there, her image preserved somehow in this terrible place. She was standing at the threshold just on the other side, and she was looking at me with eyes that held no fear. "Close the door, Benigno," she said. "Use the stone. Speak the words. Close the door and don't look back." "How do I?" "You already know. You've always known. Your blood knows. Trust it." I placed the stone at the threshold. I lit the vine with trembling hands. I spoke the words on the back of the photograph, words I shouldn't have known, words that came from somewhere deeper than memory. The door began to shrink. The things on the other side screamed, not in pain, but in fury, in the rage of predators denied their prey. The last thing I saw before the threshold vanished completely was my grandmother's face. She was smiling. "I'm proud of you," she said. The door was gone. I don't know how long I stood there, minutes, maybe hours. Time didn't seem to work right in that valley. Eventually, I looked down at my hands. The stone was gone, dissolved into dust the moment the threshold closed. But the photograph remained. My grandmother had known this day would come. She had spent her entire life getting ready for a battle she knew she wouldn't live to fight. The unthing wasn't random. It was a weapon, carefully assembled, specifically designed to close the door if it ever opened again. I walked back through the passage, counting my steps this time. 112 steps from the canyon floor to the gap in the cliff face. It was not the endless, disorienting maze I'd experienced on the way in. It was just a narrow corridor through solid rock. When I emerged into the afternoon light, I had to shield my eyes. The sun was still up, barely. It hung low over the western peaks. I checked my watch. 5:47 p.m. I'd been inside for nearly 5 hours. It had felt like minutes. The forest was alive again, full of sounds I hadn't realized I'd been missing. Birds, squirrels, the distant sound of an elk bugling. I stopped at a small creek to drink and wash the grime from my face. The water was cold and clean, tasting of snowmelt and minerals. That's when I noticed my reflection in the pool. My hair had changed. Not all of it, just a streak above my left temple, running from my hairline to the back of my skull. It was white now, pure white. A mark, a reminder, a warning to anyone who knew how to read it. I had walked through the door and come back, but I hadn't come back unchanged. I reached the trailhead just as the last light was fading from the sky. Engineer Ramos was waiting for me. She ran toward me before I'd even cleared the tree line. "Benigno, thank God. We were about to send—" She stopped, staring at my face, at the white streak in my hair. "What happened up there? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Something like that." "Did you find him? Dr. Werner?" I thought about what I'd seen. The bodies being worn like costumes, the black eyes and terrible smiles. the souls being absorbed into something vast and ancient and hungry. "He's gone," I said. "There's nothing left to recover." "What do you mean, gone? What happened to him?" "You need to close that trail permanently," I said, putting my hand on her shoulder. "The high terraces, the whole area around that valley, it needs to be off limits forever. Make up whatever excuse you need to. Unstable geology, protected wildlife habitat, sacred Native American site, I don't care. Just make sure no one ever goes up there again." "Benigno, I can't just close a trail without an explanation. There are procedures, public comment periods." "Then start the procedures. Start them tomorrow. And until they're done, post guides at the junction. Tell them no one goes past Tarmagan Lake. No one." "What did you see up there?" she asked. Her eyes kept drifting to the white streak in my hair. "Something that's been hunting in these mountains for a very long time. Something that's contained now, sealed. But the door is still there, even if it's closed. And doors can be opened again if enough people go looking for them." She looked at me for a long moment, searching for something that would make sense. "The family. What do I tell the research facility? What do I tell the media?" "Tell them what you always tell them," I said, unable to look at her anymore. "Lost in the wilderness, presumed dead. Bodies never recovered due to difficult terrain. It's kinder than the truth." "Is it, Benigno? Is it really kinder to leave them wondering forever?" "If I told you the truth, the real truth about what happened to that man, you wouldn't believe me," I said. "And if you did believe me, you'd never sleep peacefully again. Some things are too heavy to carry. Some knowledge breaks people who try to hold it." "And you? How are you going to carry it?" she asked. I touched the white streak in my hair. "I don't have a choice. This is my land, my responsibility. My bloodline has been carrying this weight for generations. I'll carry it until it's time to pass it on to someone else." I drove back to headquarters that night, taking the long way. The mountains were dark shapes against the stars, silent and watchful. Chief Balili was waiting for me. He saw the mark on my hair. "Your Apo came to see me after she visited that place," he finally said. "She was just a girl then, but her eyes were old. Old like the mountains, old like the stones. And she had a white streak in her hair, just like yours." "She never told me that. She covered it up," I said. "It's a mark. A sign that you've walked between worlds and come back. The old ones used to say it meant the spirits had touched you, that you'd been chosen for something." "Chosen for what?" "To remember, to watch, to be ready." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now, you keep doing your job. Keep following the rules. Keep watching for signs that the door is opening again." Chief Balili leaned forward. "The things you saw, they're not gone. They're just waiting. They've been waiting for millions of years. They can wait a little longer. And if the door opens again, then someone else will have to close it. Maybe you. Maybe your children or your grandchildren. The responsibility passes down through the bloodline, generation to generation. That's how it's always been." He paused. "You have a daughter, don't you? A little girl in Manila? Emilia. She's 6. You should spend more time with her. Teach her the old stories. Teach her the old language. Someday, she might need to know. Not to scare her, just to prepare her, the way your Apo prepared you. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the truck for a long time, staring at my grandmother's photograph. She had spent the rest of her life making sure I could do the same, walk into the valley, face those ancient things, and walk out again with my soul intact. I understand now, I whispered to the photograph. I won't let you down. I put the photograph in my wallet, next to my badge and my police ID. The trail to the high terraces is closed now, officially due to geological instability concerns. The valley that shouldn't exist doesn't appear on any maps. The Peterson family was declared dead after a 6-week search turned up no evidence. Another tragedy in the wilderness. I still patrol the province. I still follow the rules my Apo compiled. I still avoid the high valleys after dark. But I carry her photograph with me everywhere now. And I've started writing down everything she taught me, everything I learned in that valley, everything the next generation will need to know if the door ever opens again. Emilia is coming to visit this summer. I've already planned the hikes we'll take, the safe ones. I'll tell her the stories around the campfire. She's too young to know everything, too young to understand about the things that live in the darkness beneath the mountains. But someday, she'll be ready. Someday, I'll give her the rules, just like my grandmother gave them to me. And when that day comes, she'll understand. She'll know what to do, because the door will open again. The things on the other side are patient. They've been waiting since before my people came to these mountains, and they'll be waiting long after we're gone. But we're patient too. We've been here for thousands of years, watching these mountains, learning their secrets, passing our knowledge from parent to child. We know how to wait. We know how to prepare. We know how to fight. And when the door opens again, when some hiker or researcher or curious teenager stumbles into that impossible valley and finds themselves face to face with something that was ancient when the mountains were young, there will be someone ready to close it. That's the truth about the Banaue Rice Terraces. That's what the tourism department doesn't know, and the tourists will never understand. The mountains are beautiful. The rice paddies are spectacular. The history is breathtaking, and you should absolutely visit. Just stay on the designated trails. Just follow the rules. And if you ever find yourself in a valley that isn't on any map, facing something with dead eyes and a terrible smile, remember, you are not alone. Somewhere in the province, an officer with my blood will be waiting for a call. An officer with a protection medicine around their neck and words of power on their tongue, marked as someone who has walked between worlds.
My name is Benigno Labang, and I'm an officer with the Ifugao Provincial Police. These mountains are my home. Whatever sleeps in the darkness beneath these ancient terraces, whatever waits for the next door to open, I'll be ready.